Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Over It podcast. This is Suzanne Kohlberg, joined as always by the lovely
Kristan Kershaw.
And today we are super excited to have a very special guest, Melanie Childers. Melanie, would you like to introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I am thrilled to be here with you. I'm Melanie Childers. I am a master certified coach and a business coach for feminist entrepreneurs. And we kick ass and take names with strategy, mindset, all the things over in the Bad Bitch Mastermind. And I'm also the host of the Bad Bitch Entrepreneur podcast. So hello, hi, thank you for having me.
And if you don't yet listen to Melanie's podcast, once you finish listening to this episode, go and subscribe because it's fabulous. I was just saying as we hit record, was it your podcast that I heard Toxic Pony on? It's the mashup. If you haven't yet heard, you'll thank us later.
Just go search Spotify or wherever on the internet and look up Toxic Pony. It's musical gold.
Yeah, it gives you life. So anyway, today's topic, how to get more done in less time. But before we dive into that, I have to say, when I sent Melanie an email to ask her to join us on this podcast, I can't remember the length of it I said, but I remember saying, I'm not a stalker, I promise. And then yesterday, I've shared all the podcasts I've guested on Spotify. I've made a list. Look at me getting all profesh. And someone sent me a message saying, I've listened to your entire list more than once. And then 2 seconds later, I'm not a stalker, I promise. And I was like, this is my people. So yeah, as I say, we take our subject matter very seriously and the transformations we want to help people with, but we don't take ourselves too seriously. So if you're liking a bit of humor, this is the place. Or our humor, we think we're funny.
And the care factor if others don't. It's like, okay, maybe we're not a good match.
Yep.
We're not a fit. You do you. So, Melanie, take us away. My first question, how to get more done in less time, where does this stem from? Like, there's usually a backstory when somebody has a topic like that.
Oh my God. Well, I am a classic overachiever. But I sort of started out that way. And then I also have an incredible rebellious streak. So like up until like middle school, I was definitely like straight A student, overachiever. And then I hit like 11, 12, 13, 14. And I was like, middle fingers up. I'm going to smoke and drink and run away. And you can't tell me what to do. And if I fail middle school, I don't care.
I have the necklace for you.
Yes. I love that guy with the middle fingers up. And then we moved states when I was in the first year of high school. And I had the realization that nobody knows me here. Nobody knows where I came from. I can reinvent myself. I can be whoever I want. And I had a teacher who was like, listen, you're very smart. Why are you fucking around? What's happening here? What's this? She was like, this whole thing that I'm looking at right now, what is this? And I think just having somebody else believe in me was really, really helpful. But once I got to a 9 to 5, the fuck it streak came back because I didn't love working for other people and being micromanaged and told what to do. And once I started working for myself, I was like, oh my God, I am spending a lot of time. Like as an entrepreneur, for the first couple of years, you're usually wearing all the hats yourself. And I was like, oh my God, I'm spending so much time doing all the things myself. But actually, I wasn't spending a lot of time getting things done. I was spending a lot of time surfing the internet and stressing out and writing and editing and throwing it out and starting it over with like blog posts and emails and social media posts. And I was wearing myself out and I wasn't getting a whole lot done. And I was like, this sucks. This fucking sucks. How do I make this stop?
Oh my goodness. I think you've just described the first between 1 and 5 years of most people's entrepreneurial journey. It's like, I'm doing all the things. Why doesn't this work? And I'm adding value. And it's like, but are you really, or are you just kind of like procrasta branding or procrasta blogging or procrasta adding value while you're really just kind of scrolling and comparing?
Right. Are you
and
making pretty
despairing?
graphics, or are you getting some shit done?
Yes. No, I love that. And the other thing that I just wanted to add is I loved how you said overachiever. This is the Over It podcast. I don't think we've covered that yet, Kristan. So overachiever. You've added to the list. I love it.
I think we need to weave that in, because the most people that are in the position of being over it have been or are overachievers at some point. I know as you're describing, I'm like, I may not have had too much of the rebellious side of me come out, but it's like, those watching the video, you'll see me putting my hand up in the air, volunteering myself. Yeah, so yeah, it really resonates, everything that you've said so far, with what I've seen for myself and so many other people. And where they end up at the other end depends so much on what they stumble upon. You know, do they get someone to redirect and to work with people like yourself or Suze who help them to get over those hurdles? Or I look at myself in my first business where I ran it as more a side hustle, and it never really made me any money. It was a great tax offset. It was a great thing to do while my kids were little. It built my skill set up massively. But at the end of the day, how far did I really get with it? And people looked at it and went, oh, it's just a hobby. And I remember that judgment that came with it.
How's your little hobby going, doll? Oh, yeah. Words that make me want to die inside, or punch somebody, or both.
Let's go with both.
Rude. Set some things on fire, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. I like that style. Hang on a minute. But yeah, then when I went into the business I'm now in, the same people going, oh, how's that little business going? I'm like, I'm feeding a family. I'm like, it's nothing like the first one, because I've gotten some mentoring and because I've learned from other people that there is more to it than exactly what you were just describing.
And I think the other thing, before you continue, Melanie, that I just wanted to bring light to, I loved how you said, I came across a teacher who believed in me for two reasons. The first is, on a recent guest podcast, we did speak about the limitations of the school system, and that is totally a valid point as well. But sometimes it just takes that one person. And I'm sure many of us have that one teacher. Like I have one. I sent him a Christmas card every year for like my first 10 years out of school, just because it was so instrumental. And the second point I want to bring, it's kind of like the hero's journey, as in like the teacher might have been your Yoda or your person who, like, somebody sees in you what you don't see in yourself and starts you on a path. And I just love that. So was there anything else you wanted to add? Because we interrupted you about like, I love, getting more done in less time.
Yeah. Well, and then what happened was, like, when I became an entrepreneur, I was still working my full-time job, which actually didn't require full-time of me because I was fast at what I did and very focused and determined to get through it and get it done because I didn't love it. And then I also went to work for in sales for another coach. And so I was working 3 jobs and like thinking to myself, how am I going to get all of these things done and still be successful in my business? And so like I had to start getting very determined and very like focused in my hours that I had to work, because I didn't want to work 12-hour days. I didn't want to work 14-hour days. Like, I have a partner and he would be like, hello, it's 5 o'clock. Can you be done now? And I'm like, what? No. And so like I made myself like a little pie chart that had in Excel or Google Sheets or whatever. And it was just like, it was something I could just copy and paste every day so I could see where did I spend my hours. And I was clocking 30%, 30%, 30% every day. And so I was like, okay, at least I'm 30, 30, 30. And then once I quit my day job, I'll be 50, 50. And then I can be 100%. But it sort of forced me to get done what I could get done in the hours that I had, instead of spending a lot of time like being stressed out or, shopping or scrolling the internet or whatever. It was like, okay, from 2 to 4 today, you're working on your business. What's the most important thing that needs to get done today? And then I found the Life Coach School and Monday Hour One, which is one of the products that they have inside the Life Coach School. And it talks about, what are the feelings that come up when you are procrastinating, because procrastinating is an avoiding behavior. And sometimes it's useful and sometimes it's not. And you always want to be looking for, what am I avoiding right now? Why am I avoiding that thing? And so what I found for myself, I have ADHD. And so I would make a task actually a really big project instead of something small that needed to be done. It felt really huge. And I would avoid and just freak out and run away from like a 2-minute task. And I was like, oh, I'm just making this too big in my head. Oh, let me break down how long I actually think it will take to get done. Oh, let me break down what actually needs to be done so that I stop over dramatizing in my mind and can actually just sit down and get it done. And things that were actual projects, I would be like, oh, okay, I'm stressed out because this is an actual project with more than like 2 steps. So I need to sit down and map out all the steps, and then it will feel doable. And so working through that for myself gave me a lot of confidence and a lot of like a planning skill set that I had, but I wasn't using. And so once I started implementing that and working through the things that were causing me to procrastinate and causing me to slow myself down, then it was like, oh, I'm actually getting like 5 times more done without as much freaking out as I did before. I still have days where I freak out. It's not perfect, but just doing probably 6 months of sitting down and coaching myself through what's coming up for me, what is this feeling, what am I avoiding and why, and reframing it as to like, okay, how will this be really a good use of my time? How could this be easier? How could this be simpler? About 6 months of that, and I realized, oh, I've spent my whole life feeling attacked by my calendar. Rude. A calendar I created for myself. Also rude. And it doesn't have to feel that way. It actually can feel like something I want to do.
I love that so much. And I love how you said that it took 6 months, because often we'll see someone who's achieving the thing we want to achieve, who's probably been doing that for we don't know how long. And then we listen to them and go, I'm going to do that too. And we try and do it by 3 days. It's kind of like a diet. You start on Monday, you quit by Friday. They don't know what they're talking about. I've got to find the next person. Right. And it's like, this is going to be a process. And is it the Pareto's principle? I can't remember who it is. That the amount of time you give the task is how long it will take. It's got a name.
Yes.
And
that the time expands and the task expands in the time that you give it. Yeah.
Because what came to mind when you were talking is, so one of the things I'm proud of in my business is since 2017, I've sent a weekly newsletter. So at the time of recording this, it's been 5.5 years. And I'm like, go me. But in the beginning, that shit took all day. Like literally, it took all day because I let it, and I'd edit it and re-edit it and I'd format it, and I'd just be like, this is not the best use of me, because I loved how you said this is a good use of my time. So then I was like, how long does it really take? Now I can get that shit done in one Pomodoro. Do you know the Pomodoro technique, Melanie? Yeah. So 25 minutes, I write, I edit, I find the photo, I put it into my active campaign because I copy template, and I post. And people are like, how? And I'm like, because that's the time that I allow it. I don't get precious. If it's not the best one, I'll write another one next week. Like, is this the best use of my time to get perfectionistic about something that how many people are going to open anyway? Like, we hope that people do. But, what's the best use of me?
But you're just going to send them another one next week. Yeah.
Yeah. And the ones I find, it's fascinating. The ones that I actually do put more effort or thought into, I'm like, I'm going to write about this. And I contemplate it in the shower, like the best ideas come in the shower or whatever. And I send it out and I'm like, nothing. And then the ones that I literally just like, I have to write about this right now, so people are getting a second email. It's another thing. I don't get precious. I used to be like, no, 1 email a week. And now it's like, whenever I get inspired, I get the biggest replies to those. And I think that's following the muse or the spirit of your business, depending how you phrase it.
100%. Yeah, I have found the things that I post like on social media, or if I send an email, it's like, I am fired the F up about this and it needs to be said, gets the most response. The things that I overthink and over edit and get precious about, because I was the same way. It would take me all damn day to write an email. And I'm like, who has time for this? I don't have time for this. I'm not doing this. Now I'm the same way. It takes me 20, 25 minutes. And I'm like, look, we're in, we're out, like schedule it. Whatever. I'll write another one tomorrow. It's fine.
And that's it. And I think that's for anyone with anything. I think when we let go of that the perfectionist cross procrastinator, like that is just doom and gloom right there. And one email is not going to make or break your business.
I 100% agree. And I absolutely love that thought. And I love that whole concept, because I think that the thing that really shifted me from it taking a day to write an email to 20, 30 minutes to write an email was like, what's just the one thing I need for them to know today? What's the one takeaway for them today?
Yes.
And how can I say that in a story? How can I help them see themselves in this? And like, sometimes it's just like, I'm fired the fuck up. And sometimes it's like, here's a story and I've like spent a few minutes crafting it. And sometimes it's just like, look, here's the thing you just need to know today. Just
But I love that. And I think when we put ourselves in the recipient's shoes, I don't know about anybody else, but some people obviously spend a lot of time crafting their newsletter. It's like a once a month mailer thing. And honestly, most of the time I'm bored. Like there's so many links in there and there's so many things and I'm just like, I'm out. Whereas if it's just one thought, one concept, one idea, one story, I'm like, I need to know more. And then you like listen to this episode of the podcast or, you know, come over here like for more detailed thing. I think it's kind of like the hors d'oeuvre that invites you to the buffet rather than here's the buffet and I wasn't really hungry to begin with.
Yes. Oh my God, I love that. Like, here's the hors d'oeuvre. Would you like the buffet? It's over here.
Yes. Or it might not be. You might be like, no, I don't care. But the thing is, I don't align with this concept, but next week or tomorrow, she'll have something else. And people who, I notice people whose emails I open a lot, it's that. It's kind of like, I think the fear, I don't know, I'm just totally riffing here. But with the way cancel culture is, we have this fear that we say one thing wrong, and we're going to be torn down and nobody's going to love us because they're going to secretly discover whatever it is, because we all have, you know, that's the imposter thing happening. Whereas if we trust our people who are like, Suzanne's talking about her kids again today, I'm out. Or I only read it when Suzanne talks about her kids, which is, you know, the other thing. But you get to trust that people can opt in and out of what they choose to partake in, much like at the sushi train, you can pick which dish that you want to eat. And you're like, no, I don't like seafood. So you just let that one keep going.
Yeah. I love that.
Awesome. Did you have any thoughts, Kristan?
Oh no, I'm just loving it because it resonates so much with what I've experienced. I actually get someone else to write my emails because the perfectionist in me couldn't let go. And also my timetable is such that even 20 minutes squeezed in somewhere in a week doesn't happen. And I do it monthly, get someone else to do it. But she does a beautiful job on doing little, it's funny how it's like a mashup of the two, because the person who writes it for me does little short snippets. And if someone wants to go read it, they can go read it, but it's not a big, long blog within an email on
Lord of the Rings type scroll.
Which I'm going to say I could be more tending towards. Although I too got better. Like for a long time, I did do my own emails, and it's a craft. It doesn't come the first time that you do it. And you've got to know that, especially when your list is little, most of those people who are there are probably already pretty, what you were saying, Suze, they're pretty towards you anyway. Like they're already supporting you. They're going to stick by you, even if you do write something that doesn't resonate, because they've come to you for a reason. And those who don't stick with you, I think this is something else too. Maybe you're not a good match. Maybe it's not, you know, don't be scared that sometimes people will leave your list because they may not have been an ideal client or, you know, ideal in your audience, whatever it might be. And maybe they've just saved you having a big list of people that aren't really engaged or aren't really interested in the true who you are. If you can't say something that doesn't resonate with them once in a blue moon, well, you know, are they really the best person to be on your list anyway?
This could be 100%. A whole
100%.
Episode, list management, because I have so many thoughts on this, because like it's funny, I'm stingy in some regards and not in others, but like I don't want to pay for a bunch of fuckers who don't want to hear from me, because if you're not in business and listening to this, we have to pay for our mailing list. Like depending on the size is how much you pay. So what Suze does, and you'll know if you're on my list or you'll look out for it now, when I'm getting towards bumping up to the next income bracket, like I have to pay more, I deliberately send a couple in a row of just pure sales emails. I very rarely do it because I do content and sharing and I make offers like I'm a business. But if you see why wait, you're like, Suze is trying to clear out the people who don't want to be there. And I love sometimes the responses I get, because sometimes people send things like, oh, you're just money grubbing, or you're just trying to get my money. I'm like, do you respond to the supermarket mailer when they've got bread on special saying you're just trying to get my money? I'm just as much as like, yes, I'm loving and caring, the compassionate bitch, because it's like, yes, but I'm also in business. So if you don't want to hear from me or you just want a seagull, follow my stuff on socials. Don't be on my list.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Yeah, you're on my list. You've opted into hearing more from me. Guess what? You're going to hear that I sell shit. It's a business.
Whoa, no way. How could you possibly?
It's a
But
business.
you've opted in too. And I love that. Like,
Yeah.
I have, as far as I know, one of the most consensual things. If you sign up to do a one-on-one or anything with me, it does not automatically add you to my list. That's a thing from me. If you get the first 2 chapters of my book for free, does not automatically add you to my list. Like, you actually have to seek it out as such, because that's another pet peeve of mine. If I do some freebie or I do something, it doesn't mean I want to hear from you 27 times a day. Well, actually, it's probably a bit excessive. But one time I signed up for a free chapter of the book and got 17 emails in 24 hours. I was like, even if I wanted your book, I am so out now. So, but then again, it might work for them. So, you know, you do you.
So one thought that came to mind, when someone's starting out, Melanie, so you've described, you know, where you were at and then where you got to, so when you looked at your day, did you just write down what you were doing as you were going through the day to start to actually get an idea of, like, where do I begin? Because if someone's listening to this and going, well, I'm there, I get this, where would the first, because Suze and I both know that little baby steps tend to get someone actually into the routine of doing something new and finding that they can actually control that thing that's otherwise overrun them. Yeah. Would you have a suggestion of one thing for someone to start, or how did you begin on that path to knowing?
I would say, the biggest thing that really helped me was doing a time audit. And it was really like, I wasn't calendaring my time as such, but I was like, I literally just had like a notebook and I was like, okay, 8 a.m. I spent 30 minutes journaling. 8:30, I went up and got coffee and hung out with my husband and had breakfast and went to the bathroom. Like personal time, right? Okay, 9 o'clock, I checked my email. Oh, 9:30, I found myself on Facebook. Oh, suddenly it's 10:30. Oh, I spent an hour on Facebook. Okay, right? And like without judgment, but really just looking to see, let me be really honest with myself. Where am I spending my time? Where am I scrolling? Where am I avoiding? Where am I spending a lot of time where I think it took me all day to write that email? Maybe it only actually took me 30 minutes, but I spent all day stressing out about it. How was I spending my time?
Yeah.
And so like even just having like a daily log of like how I spent my time today is, and then go look back at it over the week. Yeah. It's like, oh, okay, I can start to see my patterns and I can start to see, is this the way that I actually want to spend my time? What did I actually get done? A lot of times, like nowadays, I'm like, when my brain loves the thought that like, I don't get anything done. I did nothing today. It's always a lie. And so sometimes at the end of the day, I'll be like, hold on, let's look. What did I actually do? Where did I actually spend my time? Because I know my brain's just a lying liar a lot of the times. And I like to dismiss and delete the things that actually happen. And so sometimes just doing that at the end of the day is like, what did we get done today? How much time did we spend on those things? And then you can start to, once you know, like awareness is the first piece. So that however that looks for you, if you calendar your time, if you just do it by hand time audit, some people use an app. I think it's called Toggle, Toggl,
yes,
online,
Yep.
Toggle, that you can like actually time yourself doing things. That always just like made my heart rate go through the roof. I'm like, I'm being watched, I'm being timed. But there are tons of different ways that you can do it. And I think, I know that awareness is the first step of seeing what you are actually doing. Is it what you intend to do? Is it what you thought you were doing? And then moving from there, like sort of intentionally deciding, okay, what do I actually, let me look at where my energy is every day. I know for me, I'm not a morning person. It's like 10 a.m. before I'm awake yet. And so I don't schedule anything for myself to actively be doing that requires any amount of brain juice before coffee. That's a no. It's a no. If I need to coach people, it's happening after 10 o'clock. That's no. In rare circumstances, I will take like a podcast interview or, something early in the morning that's like a friend peer meetup. But the way that I decided that was by looking at my energy levels. And so it's like, okay, where do I have the most energy in the day? It's in the afternoon. Okay, well, let's do the things. Let's schedule those things that require my creativity, that require my creating intellectual property or being on or being present. Those things are going to happen in the afternoon. And so I sort of see like 10 to 12 as like easing in. And so I'll reply to things. I might reply to emails or reply to social media stuff or sketch out podcast notes. And then I won't actually record until I usually give myself like a day or two to just noodle on it. And then I'll go back and look at it a couple of days later, and then I'll record in the afternoons so that I'm not trying to make my energy do something it doesn't naturally do.
Yep.
And so I think that's a really useful place to go. Yeah.
Yeah. And I love what you said there about finding when your energy is, because everyone has their own circadian rhythm as to when that is. Some people it'll be right, they're out of bed and they're going, and the early morning energy. Yeah, I was thinking of you, Suze. And they're right to go. And others are night owls. And it may not be any time during the day. You might need to really be kind to yourself to do other things. And it may be that over time it evolves when you get out of that fight or flight kind of mode. And what you were saying with the calendar ruling your life, when that side of things comes down, you might find that shifts as well. I think I see that in people for sure.
And I think what I loved too that you shared was there's nothing wrong with the old school pen and paper. Like sometimes I think we're like, unless I do the app or the journal, and this is another way to procrastinate people. I just need to find the right app. I just need to find the right journal. I need to find the right system. I love it. It's like we're preaching to the converted here. And for me, the best thing I use for almost everything is notes on my phone, because I always have my phone with me. So it's a maze in there. Like, and now I've found you can make folders, so it's slightly less of a maze. But and it's finding what works for you. And I loved how you said about checking in on your energy. So as you're writing what you've done, because sometimes you can choose, like I loved how you said, I noodle on the idea, or I think about it and I write some notes and then I record later in the afternoon. And then there are other things that, appointments or, I know things with the kids when they go to school. Sorry, school, that time doesn't work. There are things that you have to do. Right. But I also love too how you said things that you like, having a shower, having breakfast with your hubby. Because when I start to do scheduling with clients, when they send it to me or when we go over it on a session and I look at it, I'm like, when are you going to eat? When are you going to shop? When are you going to cook? Because we tend to think, okay, I don't have that much on. And the very first thing I ask in my program is like, what else do you have on besides this program? And the new people are most of them go, well, nothing else. And I'm like, so you don't work and you don't cook and you don't have family time. And like, oh, because we think, we just doing this thing. But I think the reason that a lot of programs don't work in the long term is we kind of put our life on hold and focus fully on that. And then we're like, when I'm doing this thing, I have great results. And then when I don't do this thing, so I'm just this lazy fuck who can't be trusted. And it's like, no. You haven't included your life in this thing. Transformations happens amongst everything else, not putting things off and then having this success for a little while until you don't. So the fact that you're getting really granular with what are you doing, because for me, a lot of my time is taken up taking to my son to his appointments. He has autism, so he has a lot of support. So it's driving him to the appointment and then sitting in the waiting room or being in with the appointment and then getting the homework from that appointment and factoring it in. And some weeks I'm just like, I just can't be fucked this week doing all the activities. And I'm very also blessed that he wants to learn, he wants to do these things, because sometimes he doesn't, and that's a whole other thing. But I realized too, sometimes we have, you know, children or other people who don't want to do the things, and that adds a whole other layer to this. And then we put so much pressure on ourselves, and then we're like, oh, and now I've got to send an email or write a blog or whatever. No wonder we end up with Netflix and chips, people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think, you know, when it all feels really overwhelming, that's when we have to be really nice to ourselves. And that's when we have to like really check in and just, you know, hand over heart and be super kind so that our bodies and our nervous systems can calm down enough, because it's really, really, I'm not going to say you can't, but it's really, really challenging to respond or to plan or to use your higher order thinking when you're in survival mode, and overwhelm is a symptom of survival mode. And it's like, oh, okay, you have all of these things going on. Let's check in and be kind to ourselves. Of course you're overwhelmed. Of course you're freaked out. This is happening. This is happening. This exists. And you're okay. And you're safe. And it's okay.
I love that.
And it's all going to be okay. And then when your body and your mind is calm, then if you are ready and if you want to do things, then you can start to have access to your creativity and to your brain again. It's very hard. I think I ran my business in full-on stress response for like the first 4 years. And I was like, why am I so tired all the time? And I was like, oh, because I'm in fight, flight, freeze, fawn. I'm in a stress response 90% of the time. Oh, and it doesn't have to be that way. I can be calm and I can breathe, and I actually have more creativity and access to my higher order thinking and planning and intentional ways of being when I do that. Oh, what do you know?
That's such a valid point too,
we
because
don't know.
we don't know what we don't
it.
know. And also, when we tend to plan is when we're feeling calm and relaxed. We're like, okay, this is a day I'm going to sit down. But then when we have to action the plan is in our day to day, when we're not calm and relaxed. And the other thing too is sometimes, especially I know new in business, or, you know, we worry that we're letting our clients down, or we worry that we're letting people down. I did a masterclass earlier this year and I got about a headache partway through. I did say that I had it. I should have just wrapped it up, but I pushed on, and I'd had a client immediately backing. Normally I'd have a break, but I don't know, I had some scheduling snafu. And she'd been at the masterclass. And when we got onto the call, I knew I couldn't run it. And I felt guilty because I was like, here I was doing a free thing and I have a person having a paid service. And I just said to her, look, I have that headache. It's gotten worse. I have to go have a nap. I'll message you and we'll reschedule. And she said, sure. And as I went off to have the nap, part of me was like, oh, that's terrible, and she's going to hate me. But part of me is like, no, this is where it had to go. And when I woke up like 3 hours later, so seriously needed that nap, she was like, thank you for modeling self-care for me. Like, this is why I work with you, because you practice what you preach. And it's like, yeah, I could have pushed through. It wouldn't have been great.
Yeah.
And it's like, sometimes I think, you know, if everything's going to make and break on one client, one email, one thing, then our foundations aren't good. And our clients realize that we're humans too, and we need to reschedule things. And if they, you know, like, I understand sometimes people have hired a babysitter or they've moved stuff around to make this, and I get that. But, you know, when that happens to me as the recipient, I'm like, well, I've still got this hour. I will use it on something else. Like, I love it when I go to a group coaching call. I know I'm in the right place where if the facilitator isn't there, but they've let the Zoom room open, we're just like, let's just celebrate, or let's just go, or let's just do this until they get there. I know on my group once, because you were there, Kristan, that I got kicked off the call. It was the funniest thing ever. It took me like, my whole computer had to be restarted. And you actually sent me a message to my phone going, don't worry, we're all good. And then when I came back like 10 minutes later, they were just like having the best time amongst themselves. And I think that to me is a mark of true community, as opposed to that awkward kind of, let's all look around the room or turn our cameras off. If you're watching the video, Kristan just did it. And I think, you know, we're all humans and we are responsible for making the most of a situation. When we abdicate that responsibility, it's the coach's fault they were late, or they should have had their internet together or whatever. Like, obviously, yes, but stuff happens.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm glad that you brought up modeling self-care. I had to do that earlier this week because I traveled last week and came home and was like trying to power through And I got midway through Monday and I had a scheduled masterclass on Tuesday. And I was like, I'm going to finish my slides and then I'm going to practice and present. And I instead like face planted on my desk. And I was like, okay, no, we need to cancel that.
I loved that I was registered for that
we'll just do it again.
And it was so good. It was like, you
again.
could just come to the next one. Yeah, cool. And just the way you said it was just so freeing. And if it's not in your pleasure for the time, there'll be a replay. So
yep, it's all good. No problem. We'll just do it another time. It's fine. And I knew that like, if anybody was going to be like shitty about it, I was like, okay, well, you may kindly, lovingly get off my list. It's fine.
Well, I got up for it. I saw the email and I was like, went back to bed. But I wasn't like, oh, that Melanie person. I was like, she's not feeling
rude.
Well. So, and then also too, I had the choice to get up early. I could have just chosen to watch the replay, but I must admit, I love how you seeded it because you're like, could be prizes. I'm someone who's very motivated by prizes. Gifts is my love language. I'm like, there might be a prize. I am there.
There will be prizes. I'm the same way. I'm like, go on.
Do tell.
I'm sure I'm going to get something valuable, but also, what's the giveaway? I want the things.
Yes. No, and I love that too. And also, it's another thing, not just prizes. Whether there's prizes or not, I do try to attend live. Just me personally, I get something more about being in the energy of the room when it's live. And then I often will listen to the replay again anyway, sometimes being like, oh, this is so cool. And then I'm like, hear my voice asking a question. I was like, oh, wow, I was there. So that's a whole other thing. My brain's like, oh, but something about being live for me is something. It's kind of like, if you like, I'm going to do yoga and then you buy the app or the Les Mills or something, and then you're like, I can't be bothered, so I just kind of like lie on the floor. Maybe this is just me, but when I go to a class, I can't just lie on the floor. Wait, I suppose you could, but I feel like obligated to actually move. I'm like that when I attend trainings as well.
Yeah, it's like I went to all the effort to come here. I may as well participate and get what I came for. Yeah, 100%.
Exactly. So anything, oh, sorry, Kristan, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I love what you were saying as far as being, when you were talking about the overwhelmed side of things. So needing to go, hang on a minute, where am I at? Check in, be kind to ourselves. Because whether you're in business now, if you're listening to this podcast and you're not an entrepreneur, you just as much, this applies to you, if not more, really, because there are so many people who are sitting in permanent fight, flight, freeze. And they're people that I often work with who have health challenges. It's not doing your family or anyone else any benefit, let alone yourself. Because I know a lot of women will be like, but I've got to look after my kids or my husband or anyone else that's in my world. And they're not looking at themselves being run ragged, not getting sleep, not eating properly. Their body is in permanent fight, flight, freeze, and they don't even know. And that leads to health challenges down the track too. And whatever it is that you want to do in life or that you choose to do in life or whatever, it's going to be affected. So please, if you're listening to this going, oh, but I don't run a business, so this doesn't apply. No, this is all of us. And I'm pretty sure most people, if you kind of went, oh, a bit of shifting in where your position was or whatever at the fight, flight, you often can't recognize that you're in it. You just, until you take that moment, a few deep breaths and really go, what have I done today? Because how many mums do I know who have little people who go, I didn't get anything done. Well, you fed them, they're still alive, and you probably cleaned and did a number of other things without even remotely considering that it's a thing. And you're still breathing at the end of the day and functioning. Chances are you've done a whole lot. You've probably done a whole lot more than just that. And even on the bad days, you did just that. But your body, the more that it's in that fight flight mode, it makes it really hard to do any of the things that you really want to do rather than just the things that you deem that you need to do.
I love that you brought attention to that, Kristan, because depending on the age of your children, I remember when my kids were young, all the washing, like by 9 a.m. we could have been through 5 or 6 changes of clothes already. And I remember, like, I was very fortunate. Well, actually Jeremy was fly in, fly out, but even when he did come home, he was never the husband who said, well, what did you do all day? He would just go straight, and if there was dishes in the sink, he would just like roll up his sleeves and get into it. So I was very fortunate with that. But the other thing I want to say with this is it's also modeled to us, you know, I can get Melanie going on the patriarchy, I'm sure. But I remember very recently, my son's 7, and I've had the rule for a number of years now. Like, I still make their own breakfast. They're quite capable, but I don't mind. I like doing it. And I'm like, do you want breakfast now, or do you want it in like half an hour? And they will say. And the other day, like, because once my porridge is made, I like hot porridge every day. I've got a Thermomix, so I have to stand there stirring that shit. It does it itself. But the alarm for the Thermomix went off, so I'm pouring it into the bowl, and he's like, I want breakfast now. And I'm like, well, you have to wait. And he's like, well, in the 3 Little Bears story, the mummy bear eats cold porridge. And I'm like, and this ain't the 3 Little Bears, son. So you will wait. And some people are like, oh, that's so terrible. And I'm like, no, this is life. Even if you want a coffee, Melanie's like, want a coffee, it doesn't instantly appear. You either have to make it yourself or line up, and then the person makes it. There are times that we have to wait. And I think as mothers, we can often, you know, eat the cold porridge or drink the cold coffee or nuke it how many times in the microwave so it doesn't taste good anyway. And it's like, no, there's a reason I'm the nope coach. No, you can wait, or you are capable of making your own breakfast at this stage.
Yeah. Well, and I love that because, like, they're not going to die if they have to wait 30 minutes. Like, seriously, why is this the social conditioning that the kid has to come first? Like, I get it, but also, why?
But the offer was there. The
Why
offer
do we
is
lose
always
ourselves?
there. It's kind of like,
Yeah.
you want it now, even on the weekends. Like, if you choose to sleep in, I've always been an early bird. I don't mind. But if I'm cooking bacon and eggs or some sort of special breakfast and you haven't appeared at the table, I'm not going to cook it again. You can have it next week. Like, the same as a newsletter. There'll be another newsletter. There'll also be another. I think there's something in our conditioning or our wiring or our modeling, like maybe from times that there was famine or there was, you know, not enough on scarcity, that it's now or never. And it's like, and I think this leads into overeating too. How many of us are like, well, I've blown it now, I'll start again tomorrow, eat all the things. It's like, we've never blown it. I'm imagining everybody listening to this is fortunate enough to live in a place with a well-stocked pantry and a shop close by. If you really want it, you can go and get it. And as soon as you take away that all or nothing mindset for whatever it is that you're doing and putting so much pressure on this piece of content or this meal to deliver the absolution, you're just like, oh well. So there's freedom in that.
Well, and I think, to your point, like, one of the ways that I get more done in less time is to rethink or remove the pressure. Because I think the pressure, that feeling of pressure, is what causes so many of us to go into fight or flight to begin with. And it's like, how do we negate this pressure? Or how do we rethink this so that we feel a different way about it? Because every time I feel pressured and I send an email, or I feel pressured and I like post something, like, it's crickets. So that shit doesn't work anyway.
It's like energetic BO. People pick up on it.
It's like, they're like, what is happening over there? What are you going through? I don't know, but I don't want it. And so the way that I love to rethink that kind of thing is like coming back to, what is my purpose? What is the why? What is the why for me? What is the why for the people that I work with? What is the why for my bigger mission in the world? And then it's almost like my body goes, and my shoulders drop, and I take a nice deep breath, and I'm like, oh, okay. In the scheme of things, this is just one email. The world is not going to end if it goes out today or tomorrow. And when I reconnect with why this message is important and why I want it to get out, and the bigger vision of everything that I'm doing, then it's so much easier. And my energy about it is a lot lighter. And I have more fun while I'm doing it. And then I get more responses, and I get more opens, and I get more clicks. It's like, oh, all that had to shift was to find ways to take the pressure off, getting it done right this minute, or getting it done today.
I feel that, like, that gives me goosebumps. And the other thing, for just one thing for listeners that I'd tack on to that, is I always tell myself it's a placeholder. Like, if it's like, this podcast is new for Kristan and I. We've never done a podcast before. We've guested on a lot. We've never done our own. Some of the things we don't really kind of know what we're doing yet. And we're like, oh, well, this is a placeholder. And it gets to grow as you do. So I think sometimes in business, we look at people we admire and we're like wanting to model that, not realizing that they've figured it out as they've gone along. And this is a placeholder, that is a placeholder, your branding. Like I didn't have colors, I didn't have anything to begin with. And then also too, shifts and changes. I've recently, like, I don't like any of those colors anymore. Now I've got this. So nothing is set in stone or concretized, as I like to say. And you can shift. And as you said, nothing's going to make or break on one. And even if we do force or push, the people pick up on that energetically. It's like, what's she got going on today? Like, I kind of feel bad for her. We just kind of keep scrolling. And then too, when you're just really in the moment, like I posted yesterday, no photo, no whatever. I was just really curious. I'll ask both of you guys. If you see something advertised as a small group, what's the number for you?
Ooh.
5, 10?
Yeah, 5 is what came to mind for me.
Yeah, I was truly curious because, you know, it was some branding thing I was trying to do and the person was like, oh, it's a small group. I'm like, but it's not really small because anyway, I digress. I just posted that and then I had like 18 responses, but then other stuff I can post and get nothing. But I think something about the pure curiosity, because I'm not the kind of person, everyone does their business their own way, who will pre-schedule my questions and like batch it, because I'm like, I only ask a question I'm actually curious about, not, oh, what did I ask? Yeah. Oh, what's your favorite color? You know, but so anyway.
Oh.
Yeah. Well,
oh, go ahead.
Oh.
I was going to say, we're all talking at once.
What was that about placeholders? Right. Yep. We're both learning. I was going to say, like, this whole flow of discussion, I think we're kind of, the way that you were just talking, Mel, is a perfect way. Now, Melanie, I hope Mel was okay.
Perfectly fine.
Is a good way to sort of wrap it up. So for someone that's listened to this, what would you feel is the biggest takeaway that they could really grab from what we've talked about?
Oh gosh. I think to me, it's like, if you really want to get more done in less time, do a time audit. Look at the way that you are spending your time. Look at the way that you think about time. Look at the way that you think about, you know, what's going on in your mind when you're procrastinating, and really start to like be really kind to yourself. And then you can start to change that habit and start to think through the lens of like, what is the most important thing to do today? And why do I want to do it? How can I make it fun for myself? When you start to rethink like your whole calendar and your whole to-do list, that way you don't feel as attacked by it. Like, I literally used to feel like attacked by my calendar every day. I'd come and sit in my office and I would look at it and I would be like, oh my God, I don't want to freaking do any of this. Until I was like, wait a minute, hold on. Why do I want to do it? I made the calendar. I'm the boss here. I can move shit around. Why are these things here? Why did I put them here? What's the bigger vision? What's the bigger mission? Why do I want to? And then to me, like the very next step is like, can you make that fun for yourself? Can you add a little dance break? Can you do it on a voice note while you're taking your dog for a walk? Can you have a friend on Zoom co-work with you while you're doing it? You know, like always looking for, how can I make this fun? What's the most fun way to do it? So for example, I'm launching my next mastermind, the Bad Bitch Mastermind, and applications open in just a couple of weeks. I haven't written any emails. I had a plan. The plan went out the window because I've basically been sick since like July. I'm like, okay, well, it's okay. I don't have to like feel like I'm behind. I don't have to try to keep up. I can just figure out what I'm doing every day. I have a list of things that I can choose from. I have the plan that I made. I can pull the things that feel fun and the things that like are the most important to communicate. And I can chuck everything that doesn't feel great. And it's okay. And if it means that I need to launch for 3 months because I got behind and I didn't execute my plan, okay. It's okay. I'm not going to die. I'm not going to starve. Everything's fine. We're fine. Do what feels like the most fun. It's okay.
So I think that's such beautiful modeling for your audience and for, you know, people listening, because so often we do get caught in the minutia and doing something. And also too, like assessing if it doesn't feel fun. My next question would be, does it need to be done by me?
Yeah.
Delegate or ditch. If it's been sitting on my to-do list for so long, often it doesn't really need to be done, or it doesn't need to be done by me. So I love that. And before we wrap up, Melanie, is anything else you want to say about your mastermind? Because enrollments are coming up soon, or depending on when you're listening to this, I think you launch twice a year. So there'll be at some stage one coming up.
Yeah. Enrollment opens again November 30th for the February start date in 2023. And I usually launch, I usually have applications open in like May or June, and like October, November, December. So just head over to melaниechilders.com/mastermind if you want to learn more. But yeah, to me, like, it's such a great place it's a combination of business strategy and mindset and skill building. And it really is I have two different cohorts now. One cohort is for people who are growing their business to multiple six figures. And so they're working, like, doing done for you services, working one-on-one, working on like a smaller scale, like one-to-one. And then the next group is for those transitioning to one-to-many, because that's a whole different skill set, learning how to sell to multiple people at once, learning how to be visible in a much bigger way so that you become known for what you're doing. You become, influential in your industry. And it's two different conversations and two different skill sets to build. And so now we have two different groups, and I'm just so in love with these humans. They're out here changing the world for the better and making a big difference with the work that they do and the money that they make. And like, to me, that's just at my heart. That comes back to my why every time. And so, yeah, that's me.
I love that.
That is
Thank you so
awesome.
much.
Thank you for sharing.
Anything else you want to say, Kristan, before we wrap up?
No, I think just encourage everyone, if you like this podcast, let us know, comments, reviews, and if you've got something that you've taken away from this, share it so we can see, and others might go, oh yeah, that applies to me too, because you never know when that's going to help someone else to go, that comment makes me want to listen to this, and maybe that will give them a life-changing moment or something that really helps them at a hard time or whatever. So yeah.
I think sometimes the smallest insight can have the biggest shift over time, because it's like a little seed that's planted and you continue to water it. And then, where are you a year or two later? So Thank you so much for joining us today, Melanie. Thank you everyone for listening. We'll catch you on the next one.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thanks for having me.